Good evening and welcome. My name is Amanda Smuss, and this is MCTV's live coverage of 2024 presidential election. Tonight marks the summation of what promises to be one of the most riveting, eventful, and divisive elections of the past decade of American politics. Tonight, the two candidates address the American people with final remarks on their vision for our country's future. Vice President Kamala Harris has campaigned on the idea of unity and progress in America, whereas former President Donald Trump has preached the dangers of a Democratic win. Today's polls show that 74% of Americans believe our country has been on the wrong track for the past 15 years. Voters are unsure as to which candidate is suitable enough to lead. America is more polarized than ever. Both parties' voters view the opposing side as a threat to American democracy. We are separated on the idea of who could lead us strongly and follow through on their promises. NPR and the Marist poll report that Republicans are looking for the strongest leader, whereas Democrats value a candidate they believe to be honest and trustworthy. The key issues of this election are the rising cost of goods, democracy, and immigration, compiled with the historic events of this election cycle so far, like Joe Biden's poor debate performance, Trump's assassination attempt, Biden stepping down, and then Kamala Harris's bid for president. The election is shaping up to be one of the most consequential presidential races in recent American history. Coming to you now is coverage of the abortion issue from Allison Bowler.
For voters in the 2024 election, few issues are as contentious as abortion. The reproductive rights debate is widely split among party, gender, religious, and age lines, with younger female liberal voters more inclined to vote in protection of abortion and contraceptive access. The center of the abortion debate relates to individuals' moral and philosophical beliefs. For nearly half a century, Roe v. Wade guaranteed Americans the legal right to access an abortion. Following its overturn in 2022, however, states have taken drastic measures to limit abortion access, simultaneously targeting issues like contraception access and in vitro fertilization. The candidates differ widely on this discourse. Republican former President Trump has claimed that he would not cite a national abortion ban into law and has criticized states with the most restrictive abortion laws as too tough. Despite this, President Trump has a history of nominating extremely anti abortion justices, and in his second term agenda includes supporting increased regulations on contraceptives. However, he is generally inconsistent on this issue, a weak spot for the Republican Party. Notably, in the presidential debate, he spewed false rhetoric about Democrats terminating a child's life after birth. Galvanizing young and female voters is his opponent, Vice President Kamala Harris's consistent and outspoken pro choice stance on the abortion issue. Harris has vowed to sign into law policy that restores the federal right to abortion. However, a divided or majority GOP Congress could limit her ability to do so. Still, Harris has vehemently advocated for full access to reproductive rights and repeatedly criticized Trump for his pro life ideology. The candidate's stances on abortion could be a leading factor in pushing key swing states to either the left or right. Abortion rights advocates have ballot measures in 10 states that suggest adding to state constitutions the constitutional right to an abortion. Advocates are hopeful that increased voter turnout and funds spent on promoting this ballot measure will inspire undecided voters to go left on the issue and thus rally for Harris. Regardless of the results, the numbers will indicate how relevant an issue abortion remains 2 years out from the historic Dobbs decision. In Iowa, a recent Des Moines Register poll shows Harris leading Trump 47 to 44. Political scientists observed older women and female political independence as shifting toward Harris, with women in the state backing Harris at a margin of 20%. Of importance is the fact that Iowa has an abortion ban that outlaws abortion after only 6 weeks. Scientists believe there is a strong link between this restriction and the increased liberal voter turnout. The numbers in Iowa could preview similar results for other swing states with restrictive abortion laws and discontented female voters. As results are released tonight, viewers shouldn't be rash to dismiss the vitality and relevance of the abortion issue to this historic election. With America seeming increasingly divided and its partisan issue permeating into individual lives, voters are more conscious, riled, and determined to cast their vote and advocate for the candidate that best reflects their ideological viewpoint. For many, this is the issue that makes or breaks the election. Now back to Amanda with some political trivia.
Now it's time for another issue breakdown, this time regarding candidates' positions on. It's political trivia time. All right, we'll start out with the questions for political trivia. Joining me today, I have
Jess and Brielle Polizano.
welcome. Let's start off easy. Who was the first president of the United States?
George Washington. George Washington.
All right, next one. In the 2022 midterm election, which political party gained control of the U.S. House of Representatives?
They told me these questions would be easy.
Right, yeah.
I'm gonna go out on a limb and I'm gonna say Democrats.
Any other limbs?
Republicans.
There we go. The answer is Republican for 2022 midterm election. The next question is, in what year was the U.S. Electoral College established, and in which section of the Constitution is it outlined?
I don't know the year. I'm gonna say 1965, but Article 2, Section 1.
Well, you've got the article correct and the section, but it was established in 1787. Oh, no.
Yeah, that's exactly what I meant actually.
You were only a little off. Next question is, which U.S. president served the shortest term in office, lasting only 32 days before his death in 1841?
I used to know this.
Me
used to be
too.
like one of my fun facts in parties.
Political trivia.
Yeah, I used to be really fun at parties, clearly. I want to say it's Chester A. Arthur.
I would also want to say that, but unfortunately is William Henry Harrison, and he died from pneumonia
Oh wow,
in 1841.
I
Okay,
thought it
the
was 'cause
last.
he got shot in
that's JFK.
somewhere.
That might.
Well, not like fatally, but then there was an infection. I don't know.
Okay.
Look up where he got shot with a blow dart for the viewers at home. It's entertaining.
All right, our last medium question is, who is the only president to serve more than 2 terms in office?
Oh, that's FDR.
Yes, it is. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was elected president 4 times, serving from 1932 until his death in 1945. And finally, for our last question, the most difficult one.
Ooh.
In which year did the first ever televised presidential debate take place, and which 2 candidates participated?
I don't know the year, but I know it was, I believe, JFK and the guy that ran against JFK.
Okay.
And
yeah.
that would be half correct. It is John F. Kennedy and Richard Nixon. Thank you
Yes.
guys for
Oh,
coming.
Well, thank you
political
for having
trivia.
us.
It was in 1960.
Now it's time for, it was in 1960, thank you. Now it's time for another issue breakdown, this time regarding candidates' position on immigration. Thomas?
Today, the 2 most prominent foreign policy issues in the U.S. election are the wars in Ukraine and Gaza. While foreign policy is typically not a major factor in presidential campaigns, it has taken on heightened significance this cycle. Many traditional loyal Democratic voters are expressing reluctance in their support of Vice President Kamala Harris, with some remaining undecided or considering third-party options. This shift has garnered intense attention, particularly in Michigan, a key swing state with a substantial Muslim community. In 2020, Muslim voters overwhelmingly backed President Biden, making them a crucial bloc in his victory. Questions surrounding American support for Ukraine have also become a focal point in the election. It has been about 2.5 years since Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine. Candidates are weighing themes of preserving democracy and addressing concerns over the financial and logistical feasibility of continued support. Kamala Harris has pledged a commitment to America's international alliances with unwavering support for Ukraine in the face of Russian aggression. On the Israel-Palestine conflict, Harris has expressed more moderate views, supporting Israel's right to defense while advocating for a two-state solution and a ceasefire to address the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. On the other side of the aisle, Donald Trump has proposed a realignment of U.S. commitments to NATO, suggesting that other member countries should bear a greater financial burden, and has even hinted at a possible U.S. withdrawal. On Ukraine, Trump has indicated that his administration would push for a negotiated settlement, potentially requiring Ukraine to cede territory. He has voiced full support for Israel, underscoring a hardline stance on the Gaza conflict.
Now for a review of economy with Will Bellotti.
In the race for the White House, economic plans from President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris have stark contrasts reflecting different political ideologies. Trump's economic vision is rooted in a return to tax cuts, deregulation, promoting American energy independence. He advocates for reducing corporate taxes and slashing regulations that he believes stifle businesses' growth. His America First policy aims to prioritize domestic manufacturing and reduce reliance on foreign trade. Trump also stresses the importance of strengthening the U.S. workforce by encouraging job creation in sectors like coal, oil, and steel. He promises to rein in government spending and implement tough trade policies, bringing more manufacturing jobs back to America. On the other hand, Kamala Harris's economic strategy leans towards progressive reforms with a strong focus on climate change and her social equality. Her policies emphasize raising the minimum wage, expanding paid family leave, and investing in green technology to create clean energy jobs. Harris has also promised increasing taxes on the wealthy and large corporations to fund education, healthcare, and other social safety nets. Her vision centers around reducing income inequality and ensuring that growth benefits all Americans, particularly marginalized communities. While Trump focuses on supply-side growth through deregulation and tax cuts, Harris's approach is more interventionist, aiming for a broad-based growth through social programs, programs and green investments. Each candidate's plan reflects their broader political priorities for the nation's future.
Now for a look at foreign policy with Thomas Wetson.
Immigration has been a historic hot-button topic in our elections, and it seems to grow more intense every year, and this election is no different. The most recent Marist poll shows that 19% of likely voters rank immigration as the most important issue of this election. In recent years, towns along the border with Mexico have become overwhelmed with an influx of migrants. Immigrant communities throughout the nation have grown, adding fuel to issues of jobs and affordable housing. Both sides have expressed discontent with the current state of the border, but differ dramatically on their solutions. Kamala Harris and the Democrats have called for an overhaul of a broken immigration system. Harris has expressed a desire to create a clear pathway to citizenship and plans on combating root causes of immigration from Central and South America. Harris has also expressed support for the bipartisan border bill that stalled in Congress earlier this year. The bill would have set stricter restrictions on immigration, allowed border crossings to close if crossings rose above a certain threshold, and would have provided funding for more immigration judges and Border Patrol resources. Harris and the Democrats have received backlash for their mismanagement of the border during Joe Biden's presidency. During Biden's presidency, more than 2.3 million migrants were released into the country, while over 1.5 million were recorded to have crossed illegally. Since the start of 2024, the House of Representatives has passed two non-binding resolutions, one in January and one in July, condemning the Biden administration's handling of the border. Donald Trump has expressed his intentions to expand the border policies of his first term, including reinstating a stay in Mexico policy and finishing the border wall. Trump has also promised to carry out what he describes as the largest domestic deportation operation in American history, promising to deport millions of migrants. Trump has suggested the use of National Guard and local law enforcement to create temporary detention camps for this purpose. Trump also intends to end birthright citizenship for children of undocumented migrants. Donald Trump and the Republican Party have drawn controversy regarding their rhetoric about immigrants. Examples of such include baseless claims that Haitian immigrants in Ohio are eating pets and that migrants from Mexico are largely criminals and mental patients.
Today, let's take a moment to talk about something simple but powerful: gratitude. Gratitude is all about focusing on the positives, even the small things that often go unnoticed. Studies have shown that practicing gratitude can boost our mood, reduce stress, and improve our overall well-being. So here's a quick exercise. Grab a piece of paper, or just think of 3 things you're grateful for right now. They don't have to be big. Maybe it's a delicious cup of coffee you had this morning, a friend who makes you laugh, or even just a few minutes of quiet time. By regularly taking a moment to recognize these things, you start to train your mind to notice the good, even on tough days. Give it a try. Jot down those 3 things each day and see how it shifts your outlook over time. Remember, wellness isn't just about what we do physically, but how we take care of our minds. Thanks for watching.
Facts and myths.
Good evening. I'm here tonight to address certain myths about both candidates and set the record straight. Starting with former President Trump. Number one, he's banned from entering certain countries. There's a persistent myth that Donald Trump has been personally banned from entering various countries, such as the UK, after some controversial statements and policies. However, this is false. While there have been calls for bans, no countries have officially banned him from entry. Number two, he's the only president to have no political or military experience. While it's true that Donald Trump was the first US president without prior political or military experience, he's not the only person who ran or seriously considered running for president without such experience. Figures like businessman Ross Perot and others have done so in the past, though they did not win. Number three, he's universally hated by New Yorkers. While Donald Trump is certainly polarizing here in New York, he retains a strong base of support in certain areas and demographics within the state. New York City, where he was born and did business for decades, has a much more critical view, but some areas upstate and among different communities do support him. For Kamala Harris, number one, she's a socialist. Harris has been labeled as a socialist by some critics, largely due to her support for progressive policies. However, she has not advocated for socialism. Harris has taken a more moderate approach on some issues, supporting reform within the framework of capitalism, rather than the government ownership of industries, which is typically associated with socialism. Number two, she's an atheist. Harris has been labeled as an atheist, but she identifies as a Baptist and has spoken about her faith and its influence on her values. While she doesn't often highlight her religion publicly, she has openly acknowledged her faith background. And number three, she was responsible for California's high incarceration rate. Harris faced criticism for some tough on crime policies early in her career, but California's incarceration rate was shaped by policies put in place long before her tenure. During her time as Attorney General, she did oversee programs aimed at reducing recidivism and supporting reentry programs, which some critics argue were insufficient, but not the primary cause of high incarceration rates. And now for a roundtable featuring a range of Marist students.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. I have a bunch of Marist students here today to discuss a bunch of important issues about this election. I'd like to start by asking you all, what is the most important issue with you guys going into this election? What do you want to see?
Well, I think the most important issue is democracy. I think Donald Trump proposes a real threat to democracy, not just only in his recent statements, but his past record. There's a misconception that he's somehow pro-free speech, which is not true at all. In fact, Donald Trump actually threatened to deport back when the protests in Columbia University started late last summer. He threatened to deport people who protested, and I think that's just really awful. And he's also denied the election last time, which he did lose. And it's just unhealthy to have that type of skepticism. We can't all agree who won the election. It's not good for democracy.
Anybody else? Important issues for you guys?
To me, the climate crisis is the most important issue. It's an issue that encompasses every single other high-profile problem, such as the economy, immigration, affordable housing. To overlook it in its most critical moment would just be a dire mistake for both candidates.
And how do you guys think the outcome of this election is going to impact students and young people and our age demographic specifically?
Well, I think we're in a pretty no-win. I think there's going to be a lot of people mad either way that it goes, and I think that no matter which way it goes, we're going to see things get worse before they get better in terms of the political divide in this country.
Answering and taking that in a more economic direction, I think student debt relief is going to be a big part, or not the big part, but a part of the Harris administration as it was for the Biden administration. I hope they're able to accomplish more than Biden was able to on that. So I think really, the debt and the price of college is on the line in this election.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of going off what Will said. People vote with their wallets, and I think one candidate has a solid economic plan proposed. And yeah, I think that's important to everyone. It's important to me, at least.
And do you guys feel like both of the candidates have adequately addressed the issues that are important to us as students?
I do not, though.
Of course not.
No?
Not
Do
at
you
all.
think they have addressed any of the issues pertinent to America
I think
correctly?
one candidate has.
Yes, I believe Kamala Harris has addressed the issues.
All right. Go ahead.
Yeah, I forgot what I was going to say.
Okay. I want to ask, how did social media, because that has been on the rise, play a role in this election and influencing your choice or your opinions about the political candidates?
Yeah, I mean, I had to become a lot more savvy with picking out misinformation, what's reliable and what's not. And I hope other people have done the same and can make better informed decisions.
Yeah, I think social media has really affected the election in terms of misinformation. There's a lot more misinformation now than there was even 10, 20 years ago. In some ways, it's good. We can get an idea of what information is being underreported by the media, but it's also a lot of these people on the internet don't have the same journalistic integrity as the media. So it's a double-edged sword. You get the good and you get the bad with it. And so you really, as you were saying, just have to kind of weed out, see what's true and what's false.
Also, a little bit like I was saying earlier, as I feel that I think social media has very greatly polarized the debate. It's a lot easier to say things of a more extreme nature when you're not face to face with somebody, and I think that's certainly pushed a lot of the issues more to the kind of radical fringes rather than the middle ground, and I think that's been a kind of a major drawback to social media in this election.
And speaking on that, do you think this election has brought people closer together as a country or more division, especially on campus, Marist in particular?
Well, right now, I feel like it's brought us all together. In a broader sense, I think it's brought the country apart more. I think that's largely on Donald Trump. I see Kamala Harris has been really trying to incorporate Republicans into her campaign. She obviously did campaigning with the Cheneys and Arnold Schwarzenegger, and then Joe Biden obviously had the support of before he passed away from Arizona, John McCain. So I mean, she's really been doing a good job, and Donald Trump has really been very aggressive towards Democrats, and I think it's really dividing the country in a way that is negative.
Yeah, I would say some of the key events from this election cycle, such as the repeated assassination attempts on former President Trump, underscore the division and partisanship. But I would definitely say that a lot of this hateful rhetoric is fault of Donald Trump. If you just look at the presidential debate and the multiple lies that he spread, the truly dangerous and hateful rhetoric about immigrants, that just causes more partisanship and division in the country. And I think that's what makes him such a dangerous candidate.
I agree. And what challenges did you or people you know face when you were voting in this election, and what suggestions would you improve to get more people to vote?
Yeah, so Marist is actually the only campus in the Hudson Valley that doesn't have its own polling place. So we had reports from people mistakenly going to a wrong polling address. Fortunately, the voter protection team was able to rectify that, and I think that's mostly resolved.
I mean, I voted by mail in the state of Maryland, and there weren't really too many issues. It's just important to get people aware that they can just go online and request a ballot if they want to vote in their home state, or if they're registered in their home state. It's just important that awareness about that is around.
Yeah, I personally got a call about 2 hours ago saying that my mail-in ballot might be thrown out. So that was troubling to me personally. And my roommate only just yesterday got her mail-in ballot, and it could potentially not be counted in the election. So I and others that I know have not adequately received good support when it comes to voting out of state.
And what state is that in?
I'm from Connecticut. My roommate is from North Carolina, where her vote really does count.
Interesting. Speaking of college students voting, do you guys think we're more politically polarized than ever before as young people? And do you think it impacts the way we discuss politics with one another, the extremism on?
I mean, I think if you look at the numbers, younger people generally lean Democratic, but does it impact the way we discuss politics? Yeah, I do think so. You know, I've seen, I guess this is really just from my experience, it really doesn't mean anything, but this on like TikTok, Twitter, people are like, oh, I would never be friends with someone of a different party. I would never get in a relationship with someone of a different party. So in a way, I think we are together, but unfortunately, division does exist within our age group.
I think that we're not more polarized than ever before. There were times in the country's history, even in recent history in the 1960s and stuff like that, during the Vietnam War, there was probably more polarization. The issue now is people can't agree on facts. And Donald Trump is the type of candidate you can point the fact at his face and he'll say that's not true, even though you have definitive proof in front of you. And no matter how bad it got in the 1960s, you could, if you showed Richard Nixon the report, he would have to say, okay, it's true, I'm resigning as president. The fact that people and Donald Trump will deny all facts and people will believe him, even though we're not as technically as politically polarized, people believe different sets of facts, even if people's values aren't that different. And I think that's a dangerous road.
I think one of the biggest problems pertaining to the way that we discuss politics is that there seems to be a trend increasingly of only discussing politics with people that we agree with. And there's not so much reaching across the aisle. There's not healthy debate. There's ramping up your beliefs and then kind of throwing it at someone else. And then they do the same, throwing it right back at you. And it just serves to make everybody mad.
Yeah, and I think that has a lot to do with the rise of politics in media and the circles that you put yourself in. And then you're just in Democratic circles and you're in right circles, and it goes further both ways. And there's just a clash as to how we're able to discuss things. So, are there any candidates that surprised you or appealed to you with their messaging at all? Or any messaging that appealed to you? What worked?
What worked? Unfortunately, I think Donald Trump's messaging of pushing misinformation worked. But more locally, I was impressed with a lot of our candidates in the Hudson Valley with Pat Ryan, with Josh Riley, Mondare Jones. He's got a tough race on there. But, no, the 18th district has knocked on the most doors outside of our presidential campaign. So I was kind of shocked to see the amount of grassroots organization that we have here locally.
I was really impressed with Tim Walz as vice president. I mean, he was able to accomplish a really progressive and helpful policies through a state legislator with only a 1-seat majority. And the fact that he was able to secure, policies that help the climate and free school lunches and free school breakfasts with only a 1-seat majority, I thought was really powerful. And I thought when Kamala Harris picked him, I thought, okay, maybe he'll take some of those skills and be able to get the Democratic wish list accomplished.
Mm-hmm. And how do you guys see your roles as young college age voters as shaping the future? Do you feel empowered to make a difference? Do you feel like your vote matters?
I definitely feel empowered to make a difference. While it's not necessarily happening on Marist College campus, I think the rise in student protests relating to the genocide in Gaza, such as occurring on Vassar campus, reflects that even though we are unstable and divided, we still have the power to make our voices heard. It's all about just coming together and asserting that sort of dominance.
I absolutely agree. Sorry, do we want to
No,
move
I
on,
was
or-
going to ask anyone else feel empowered?
No, and I'm glad you brought up Gaza because that's a really important issue. And people are a lot of people care about that issue. Sometimes they say, well, maybe the voting won't make a difference. Trump and Kamala, they aren't too different. But really, the right to protest and the right to stand out and stand up for what you believe, Kamala Harris will protect that right. And Donald Trump has expressed, these people are secretly working with terrorists, and we need to deport them all. And it's just, if you want to protest something, even if it's not in line with the Biden, Harris, Walz agenda, but you will still have that right to protest. And under Donald Trump, he sees everything as against him as the enemy within, and that he wants to take it all. So, even if you have a disagreement, you should still be voting for Kamala Harris because you'll have the right to protest, the right to dissent. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
Thank you. And finally, what would you guys like to see change in the next election cycle? Whether candidates, policies, the voting process itself, what do you have hope for the next cycle of elections? Where do we want to be?
I'd like to see like a selection of younger candidates.
Mm.
Like Kamala Harris is considerably younger than Donald Trump, and she's still 60 years old. So I think Secretary Buttigieg, Gavin Newsom, those are younger guys that I think the Democrats should be pushing further on the stage. And I think the Republicans have a similar selection to choose from. Although I disagree with Josh Hawley, he is a young guy. He can rile up their base. Yeah, so I think if any party is really serious about winning, then they should be investing in younger candidates to put forward.
I personally would like to see more progressive candidates. It concerns me that Kamala Harris is our progressive candidate based on the public stances she's taken on a myriad of issues. So I'm hopeful that in the next election cycle, we have candidates who are more outspoken, more passionate, and more willing to make actual change.
I think this is a large ask, or it's not a large ask, actually a simple ask, but as far as unrealistic. I'd love to see money out of politics. I think it's ridiculous that corporations and billionaires have more say over what a candidate supports than the average American. I think pretty much everybody disagrees with that. And the corruption in Washington really needs to get out of there. And I think we need a progressive, as you were saying, we need a progressive candidate who's going to stand up and stand up to taking money out of politics.
I was going to say much of the same. I would really like to see very clear ways for the voter to know where the money is coming from for a certain candidate. And I'd like to see in future elections a lot more education, just kind of all around about this is how it works. This is the process. I've noticed a lot in the last couple of elections that there's a lot of people that are participating in the process without a full grasp of the electoral college, or maybe how long it takes to count the votes, or what's a recount, what's a challenge. And I think that that's given a pretty major rise to the misinformation that we're seeing a lot. So I think with more education, we can start to see kind of a decrease in misinformation.
Thank you guys so much for coming on and talking to us today. I appreciate all of your input, and we are going to...
I have one more thing.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I would like to see what candidate. Last week, I left my coat in this room, and I haven't found it yet, and I would like to see a candidate answer for that question. Are we done?
Currently, Kamala Harris is at 112 and Donald Trump is at 198. Thank you guys for being here, joining us for MCTV's live election coverage. Thank you guys for coming on and speaking. And thank you guys for watching. Thanks to our crew for being here. And I hope you guys have a safe, happy, healthy election night. Get some sleep. Thank you guys. Good night.